What's up, everyone? Welcome again to another episode of This, That, and the Other, where we talk about Detroit and more specifically MSU sports. So a couple days ago, midweek, we got the news that we had a new head football coach, Mel Tucker. Kind of came a little bit as a surprise to me, considering where the process seemed to be going for their head coaching search. I thought that in all likelihood they would be going with Mike Tressel or Harlan Barnett, which I wasn't really that excited about. And initially I wasn't as excited about the hiring of Mel Tucker either, just because of his lack of head coaching experience. But, after looking over kind of the resume and, some other stuff, seems like I think that it's the kind of hire where you say, the Spartans took a risk, but it might have been a risk they needed to take. He's been all over. If you look at his resume, LSU, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan State, the NFL, been defensive coordinator in Cleveland, Chicago, and had forced into a tough situation as an interim coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and most recently 5-7 in his only season coaching for the Colorado Buffaloes. You guys may know that he turned down the offer initially from Michigan State. They went back to him and offered him a heck of a lot more money, effectively doubling his salary at Colorado. And so now the Spartans have gone from a thrift store to a high roller, in my opinion. And the old ways of Mark D'Antonio keeping staff members that hadn't proven much or had seemingly lost a step, paying them, paying his close assistants, who he's known for forever, kind of like chump change, and just keeping their jobs safe. Those days are over. Michigan State is now allocating probably upwards of $11 million for their coaching staff, which is one of the highest in the nation at this point. So it's just a polar opposite swing in that regard. I think Mel Tucker is, in a lot of ways, is doing a lot of things right that D'Antonio wasn't doing toward the end of his career. Now, that's not to say he's a better coach. Obviously, Mark D'Antonio has proven a heck of a lot in his career, and it'll always feel a little weird, I think, or at least for a while, not seeing him on the sidelines and associating his face and his name with Michigan State football. But, we've got to turn the page. And, Mel Tucker, I think he's the right medicine for Michigan State right now. They're gonna, by the looks of it, they're gonna get a lot more aggressive with recruiting and player development, and just trying to have every member of that staff be, top notch. They went after Kentucky's. They were going after Kentucky's recruiting coordinator, who was one of the best in the nation in terms of bringing in talent. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but they actually lost that bidding war today. Michigan State put the fear of God into into them today, and so he's going to get a big payday out of this because Michigan State was aggressively pursuing him. But they'll still get a very competent recruiting coordinator. I'm fairly confident of that. Obviously, the timing is really tough, but Mel Tucker has indicated that he's not going to keep around any of Mark D'Antonio's assistant coaches on his staff, with the exception of possibly Mike Tressel. But got to take him at his word. I think he does want to bring in his own people, and it'll be it's definitely everyone I think is very anxious to see who they're bringing in. A lot of people have been talking about bringing in Brian Hartline from Ohio State, who's a receivers coach, I believe, as their offensive coordinator. That would just be a huge move for them, because Brian Hartline's moving up the ranks pretty quickly. So to have him be a coordinator would be a huge move for us. And I don't know any of the other names out there in terms of big name coordinators who they can bring in. Obviously, I read the articles and try to get a good feel of what the perception is of who they're bringing in. So I think, but like I said, I think this is the medicine Michigan State needs, and for a while it was looking hopeless that they weren't never going to get to the point of being a big player. And now it's just like a blink of an eye. They want to upgrade their facilities. They want to pay big money to these assistant coaches and really invest money in the program. And it's definitely a breath of fresh air, because a lot of people say Michigan State can't do things to the level Ohio State can do, or Michigan. And I don't fully subscribe to that. I understand where they're coming from, but it's like, just like the basketball program, they were steady with their coaching tree after they won their first national championship with Magic Johnson. You bring in Tom Izzo, who turns out to be a Hall of Fame coach, wins another national championship, and now we know them. Now Michigan State is known primarily as a basketball school, but if they could do that, in basketball, there's obviously no reason that they can't get to that level in football. And that might sound like sort of an old school grandpa kind of take, but I believe it's true. And I'm just I'm excited about the Mel Tucker hire now, after having some time to form an opinion. There's obviously no guarantee of success here. His resume is extensive, but there's definitely been some bumps in the road for him. So he still has some proving to do, and unfortunately he's going to have absolutely none of the guys that he intended on bringing in, unless he gets some people from Colorado who haven't signed yet that want to follow him to Michigan State. But so he's gonna be starting a little bit before the starting line, and I think you got to start the clock in 2021 in terms of evaluating his progress. This year upcoming could very easily be a very tough year for MSU football, and the honeymoon period is going to be over, and everyone's going to be down in the dumps on Michigan State. But you just can't allow ourselves to be shaken by that. We got to kind of expect that at this point. It'd be really nice if the whole story could be changed if Mark D'Antonio had stepped away at a more convenient time for the program, like right after the bowl game or something like that. So, don't want to bag on D'Antonio. I still think the program's in a better place since he took over. I don't think this is the same as taking over after John L. Smith, but there was still a lot of damage done, and I think Michigan State, even with how much I love D'Antonio, just from a media standpoint too, getting a new coach and being able to sort of get new faces in there, and hopefully that takes away some of the distractions from the media, the ESPN people who have been going after Tom Izzo and Mark constantly. So, now we have a new person who they've already blamed him for the way that he left Colorado. So not that the attacks aren't going to keep coming, but there will be less basis for them to make those accusations now. And all he has to do is do things the right way, and Michigan State should be able to come out of it. It was really coming to just kind of a radioactive situation with Mark. Again, it's not by his own doing necessarily. Curtis Blackwell, his lawyers deposed Mark and were threatening of supposedly uncovering some NCAA violations, but it turns out the way things are unfolding seems like Curtis Blackwell was the rat in all this, and Mark D'Antonio's lawyers are going after him pretty heavily now, and rightfully so, in my opinion. So we'll see where this road takes us. Not expecting to compete with Michigan or Ohio State for probably at least 2 years, but it'd be nice if we could get a light switch kind of coach who can come in here, win 8 or 9 games off the cuff. But that's kind of a dream scenario at this point. And, there's not much else we can say other than that. I saw his press conference, and he seemed like he's probably not the best public speaker. Again, that's not really all that important. Doesn't necessarily inspire confidence, just said some kind of generic things about, being tough and playing with integrity and stuff like that. That's just coach speak. So we weren't able to gather much from his press conference. Really what we're able to gather is stuff from other sources, the things people are saying about what he plans to do with this program. And, we talk about the possibility of him leaving eventually. That's the last thing on my mind right now, because if Mel Tucker leaves Michigan State, that means he got us to a good place, which is what we want. So if any of you Spartan fans are listening out there, Mel Tucker leaving for another job should be the last thing on your mind. It's very highly unlikely he would leave Michigan State the same way he left Colorado. And, that was a very unfortunate thing for them. And it's almost hard to find a positive way to spin that. But the only thing you can say is that it's just like anyone else who receives a massive pay raise, doubling their income. You can't expect someone not to jump on an offer like that. And, he's got Michigan State by the short hairs. He knows that he's going to have to demand some flexibility his first few years. And so he's getting, he's basically getting free job security in this as well. So Mel Tucker is the real winner in all of this, negotiating phase. And, there's going to be a lot of expected of him, with the money that they're throwing at him. And, like I said, just buckle up, because I believe at the very least, that this next year is going to be rough for us. And, you're just going to have to maintain, optimism throughout this, because, people are going to come at him, if he gets blown out in a game or several games, and they're going to question the process. And, it's really not fair to him to question that at this point, given all the circumstances. So I feel like I'm saying the same things over and over. But in summary, I believe this was a positive thing for Michigan State. We don't know. There's so much we don't know, and there's so much that's going to unfold, these first, leading up to football season. So stay positive about it. I believe that Michigan State finally gets it. And with that, I'll end this video. Go Green.